I think for me, before I loved basketball, everything that I did would be brought back around to just being a guy in a band.
Okay.
You know, whether
Sure.
it was
Sure.
whether it was books or movies or music or listening to music, which I love to do as often as I can. But
Yeah.
everything was always applicable to my work.
Okay.
And
see.
then when I really discovered that I loved watching basketball, the fact that it had no bearing on my day to day or my life really in any way, there was this sort of newfound joy.
Like a freedom almost to just consume this thing that has nothing to do with Dawes, nothing to do with your music.
And I found myself like almost recharged after watching basketball. It was a kind of a eye-opening experience for me.
Yeah, when was that? Like, when did you realize this?
Probably about like 2 years ago. It's
Okay.
It's a new thing.
Okay.
But my brother has always been a little bit more knowledgeable with it.
Okay.
We're always watching stuff on tour and going to games with our father is a big deal.
Okay, cool.
When we're home in LA.
Yeah.
So I kind of come at it with a very limited understanding.
Sure.
There will be moments where I'm watching it's like, why don't they just do this or put him in? And it's like they understand this on so many depths.
Like you would do nothing to help them out.
Yes, exactly. And so that aspect of it, like pretending like I have any understanding, but then really kind of getting into the nitty gritty and like starting to recognize like what it means to be one of the great coaches and what it means to be a great bench player and the role playing and that sort of that nuanced conversation of like, oh, just because he's a star and he gets his 30 points or 40 points every game, he's also kind of sucking the life out of the rest of the team. And you start to look into that stuff I love the narrative aspect of the way it's all unfolding. But I don't live in any of those cities. So some people would be like, what? You're supposed to be a Laker fan or a Clipper fan. But
sure.
To me, I don't really have any allegiance to an area like that. To me, it's just like reading a good book or something. It's like, oh, there would be justice if this guy got it.
Right.
And there wouldn't be if this guy did.
Right.
In my own made up world of my own opinions on it. I'm sure, all the folks that live in the cities of these players, it's like that some of these people live and die by it. So
right.
So I respect all that, but for me, it's never been like a Jack Nicholson thing of like, I don't care how bad you are, I won't miss a game. I wish I had that. That's But
that's
I'm
not
a confessed fair weather.
Fair weather. Yeah. Well, as long as the story is good, you're there. That is interesting because in a way, then you're following the lives of the players, not necessarily like you're following a team just because of their name.
And it is like a ball club.
Yeah.
And also this is a thing that I feel like I learned from watching basketball. Like you hear these stories of teams or bands that get along great and they realize what their roles are. And because of that, one guy can be cool with getting the assist while the other guy gets the shot.
Gets the shot.
And when that's not the case, when there is competition or just misunderstanding within the team or the band, there's just mixed signals and things get confused and who's leading the charge on what song can get lost. And so we've always made sure because we feel it with our favorite bands or with bands that we have like seen at festivals or something, we're like, oh, I've wanted to check them out, and it's like, oh, there's some shit going on.
Oh, yeah. Like, you can see that they're like fighting. Yeah, absolutely.
And even if they don't look at each other, you're just like, this is 4 or 5 or however many guys that are on a stage together that don't want to connect with each other. Yeah. Which is fine, but it sucks as an audience member.
Absolutely.
Trying to enjoy it. And I feel like when you go and you can tell that those 4 or 5 guys are in love with each other and they want to be with each other and they want to connect and they want to speak to each other through their instruments, there's nothing cooler.
Yeah,
I agree. And I think and like on those lower levels, it's that same rush as when you see the ball get passed 5 times to Steph Curry out of the 3-point line, and you're like, wow, these guys are so in sync. They're communicating on a level that I can merely acknowledge, but I can have no understanding.
Yeah. Especially when you think about like the superstars. I'm curious how that connects with your role being the front man. I mean, how do you think about like your position on stage, your role in the band to connect that to like, are you the superstar in the band? Like
for me, it's much more, and as this has become more the case as I've gotten a little older, it's all about how a crowd responds. And if that meant playing one note over and over and over again in a guitar solo, and that's what got them cheering, then that's what I want to do.
Okay.
I obviously don't want to repeat myself and get into just habits, but
Sure.
but it used to be about what's the, not most impressive, but what's the most musical thing? And I always want it to be musical, but I have to just remind myself that this is entertainment first and foremost.
Sure.
And when we make certain decisions that gets a crowd response, they tell us when it's good.
Yeah.
And
just because you can shred doesn't mean you should all the time.
No, definitely not. and for me, my criteria getting off stage is always, did the crowd respond well?
Okay.
And sometimes some of the guys are like, that was one of the best shows, and I'm sort of like, no, it wasn't, because
really
I didn't feel like they. So I dig that we all have different roles, but yeah, for me, it is very much of that thing of I have to keep this crowd engaged through these words in these songs, or what I say between songs, or just, how much of a fool I'm gonna be in the front of the band, but then understand, like, this part's about the drums, or I'm not gonna like stand right in front of them and keep hamming it up. It's often a dance of like, how do I get out of the way when I need to, and how do I take the reins when I need to?
Yeah, sure.
So in that sense, I do think it relates.